there's something that is so necessary in everybody's business that almost nobody is doing. Which metrics you want to measure. So if you're listening now, here's where you get out your pen and paper, because we're going to tell you exactly how to measure your business. We're going to talk about four measurements that are critical, and number 4 being probably the most critical. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of On the Shop Floor. Your host, Brad Cairns, Lynn Thompson in the house, and everybody always claps when they find out Lynn's here. It's my favorite button. So today we have some exciting news. Today is our first day. We must be getting popular. We have a sponsor to introduce today for our podcast. Yeah, this podcast is brought to you by Brad and Lynn. Same two people sponsor all of them for free. Okay, that's our attempt at being funny. I hope you thought so. So today, and I think we might say this with every podcast that we do, but I think that this could be the best one. How did you know that's what I was going to say? Yeah, I think this could be the best one. I mean, there's something that is so necessary in everybody's business that almost nobody is doing. And today we're going to unbox that. And we're talking about the excuse of it's too hard to measure my business, but that's not true. And today we're going to show you exactly how to do it. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Well, if you're ready, I'm ready. Number 1 topic is measure, measure, measure. And everywhere we go, and now I'm referring to the consulting side, the first thing that we do is we sit down. Hi, how you doing? Great. Show me, how have you been doing? Like, we need to see your historical data so that we can know that as we start to move forward together, that we're actually making a difference. And 99% of the time, what do people say?
Oh, I feel like this is what's happening. And then the production manager will tell us how he feels about this. And in the end, we don't have any real metrics. And we're just counting on people to tell us how they're doing. Right.
And, the numbers don't lie. We absolutely don't kid yourself. You're listening to this and thinking you're exempt. You might not need to be measuring. Man, am I telling you, you're missing the boat for sure. And so, I mean, everybody has one measurement, and Lynn's going to tell us how she feels about measuring with your financial statements. Now, be nice. This is a podcast.
I don't do anything without data either, right? I'm just driven that way. So I'm naturally a data person. So when someone tells me that they're running their business based on their financial statements, I cringe, because it's like driving and looking in the rearview mirror. Right? I'm finding out 5-6 weeks later how I did. What did you have for lunch 3 days ago?
Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking that. I'm like, I don't know what happened last week.
Right, and then we start making up lots of excuses. As soon as you start pinning me down on we lost money last month, or we didn't make as much money as we should have, I start pulling out, it's because we had 3 guys away that week. We had some deliveries to make. I just start rhyming off the excuses rather than actually having the tangible, actual root cause reasons why we didn't do as well last month. So now I'm just reaching, and hopefully whatever excuses I gave you bamboozled you. And hey, I'm doing my best anyways. I'm not really trying to bamboozle you, but we're all happy after I get 3 excuses, and it's like, okay, all right, we won't do that again next month.
Right. And then you just kind of like hope for the next 45 days.
You are hoping if you don't measure. That's all you're doing.
Yeah.
Crossing your fingers and hoping. It feels like a good day.
And so when I say I'm hoping for something, what do you usually tell me?
Hope is for Christmas and the weather.
So if you're hoping, listen, let this be a warning. Don't tell Lynn that you're hoping. She will unload the Christmas and weather on you. And I don't ever say the word hope without thinking about you. Okay, so people are measuring with financial statements, and this is, this is just bad all around, because most people also don't want to show their financial statements to everybody on the shop floor. Maybe, there's a reason that, hey, it's not really their business, and it's not relevant to making a decision on the shop floor. I can't make an informed decision. I look at a financial statement. The only thing I look at is the sales, as someone who can't read a financial statement. And so I see, the company did $5 million. The only equation I'm doing there is the owner put $5 million in his pocket. I don't notice the other 92 lines and then the net profit at zero. Welcome to woodworking. And so, it just, you can't motivate or inform your staff based on a financial statement, especially an old one, like 45 days old.
But even if you're doing really well and you're not measuring, we're talking about productivity in your shop, and you're not measuring, that means you're leaving a lot on the table.
Totally.
So whether you're not doing well or you're doing really well, if you're not measuring, you're leaving a lot on the table.
We've got to move on. We've harped on the financial statement sucking as a measurement. And everybody's probably wondering, well, what measurement doesn't suck that I should be using? So let's dive into that a little bit. And I just want to, before we start talking about how we're going to measure the factory, one measurement is generally not enough. You want to measure like a few different things to give you a perspective on which way you're going. You can't drive a race car with just the speedometer. You need to know your oil temperature. You need to know your RPMs. You need to know all kinds of other info. So business, same thing. You want to know from a few different directions that they're all kind of saying a similar thing. And so let's just jump right into talking about which metrics you want to measure. So if you're listening now, here's where you get out your pen and paper, because we're going to tell you exactly how to measure your business. Ready? Which one do you want to start with?
Well, I think we should introduce the concept of a dashboard.
Okay.
A dashboard is, like you just talked about, there's some sort of control center. Any important operations, there's some sort of control center where you see the high-level important metrics. So like you're a pilot. When you're flying a plane, are you looking at one thing?
No.
There's many different gauges that you're looking at. You're not looking at every single gauge all the time, but there are important ones that are on your dashboard. So for companies, we build the same thing, right? We want a dashboard of how can I see at the highest level how we're doing and where we need to direct focus. It's all about where do we want to focus? How are we doing? If we're doing well, great. Let's celebrate and let's repeat that. If we're not doing great, let's rally the troops and focus here. So the dashboard is our overall arching tool.
Right. And you just mentioned something that I wish we mentioned when we were talking about financial statements. Like if you are doing good, it's like, why? Because when you do bad and you can't remember 45 days ago, the same applies to doing good. Maybe you can't remember 45 days. What did we do that's working, because we should repeat it. So
yes, that's what I always ask people to do in the hidden factory. When you're finished a big project, do the I call it a postmortem lessons learned. You're saying what worked well because we want to repeat that, and what didn't work well because we don't want to repeat that.
Right. Okay. So now we're going to jump into the first measurement that you should be looking at, and that is your pieces per day. It's the easiest one to quantify, and for everybody who's like, well, I don't make the same thing every day, I can't count pieces, you just have to flip that into, call it points or something, and just take that dollar value of the things that you're making and say, 1 point is $100. This thing's $1,000. It's 10 points. I'm going to push the button 10 times when this crosses the finish line. And that's how you would quantify your pieces per day. If you're like a high volume repetitive operation, then it's easy. Just count the pieces. So,
Yeah,
you know.
and we always say, don't worry about the precision at this step. You're not reporting your taxes based on this. It's not, you're not filing your with your accountant or anything. This is and in a cabinet shop, it's small cabinets, medium cabinets, really big cabinets, 1, 2, 3 points, whatever. But and even they end up averaging themselves out through a kitchen anyways. But don't worry about precision. Just start measuring, and as you measure and watch this, you'll go, oh, let's tweak that a little bit, because that should be 2 points, not 1 point.
Right.
But you don't know what to tweak unless you start using it.
Or pieces. That could be two pieces. So in the case of kitchen cabinets, we always just count the number of openings as one piece.
Right.
Same with a door. You know, like I have a door company, so if we build a big, huge door that has 2 panels, we count it as 2 doors.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got to get creative. You got to figure it out. And the important part is just don't change it. I mean, change it in the beginning, but once you have your line in your sand, and you just have to trust that averages do work out. Like, don't freak out. Like, oh, that cabinet's small and that cabinet's big. Don't sweat it. It will all work out. And your intuition will tell you when something should count as 2, and go with it. But here's why you need that dashboard of more than one measurement, because pieces per day on its own is an absolutely terrible measurement.
It is. And it's not fair. You know, production is going, yeah, we made the 50 pieces today. Oh, sorry, it was only worth $10,000, not $25,000. It was, you know, the lowest level of whatever we make, the cheapest material, like it's easiest to put together. So even though it looks like you had a great day, you didn't.
Right. And the other really the part about counting just pieces that could send you off in the wrong direction is, what if your target was 100 pieces and you hired 10,000 people that day and you put out 110 pieces? You'd be like, yeah, we hit our pieces per day target whilst bankrupting the company in one day.
Oh yeah. When you get your financial statement 6 weeks later, you'll find out that was a bad decision.
You'll probably remember hiring the 10,000 people though. So yeah, so pieces per day on its own is not good. But the reason we want to track that is because it's kind of easy. It's easy to display, and it's pretty motivating for people on the shop floor in terms of, it's like scoring a goal. It's like another one crossed the finish line, another one crossed the finish line, and you get to hit that timer button, which we probably should have started with, is you should also be, with your counting your pieces per day, running some kind of a timer along with it. Like at my shop, we have a production timer specifically designed for counting number of pieces and how long it's taking us for each piece, so our operators can see right in front of them their average time per piece that day, how long they've been working on that piece right now, and then when they're done with it, they hit the button and it counts how many per day. So at the end of the day, we get a count along with an average time per piece.
And more importantly, it gives them a target. Without a target, if you give 3 different assembly guys exactly the same cabinet to assemble, let's just stick with that example, they're all going to do it at a different time. But there's a standard and a standard time that you want, all right? But if you don't have that target out there, everyone's just going to do what they feel is the right thing to do, spend the amount of time. There's probably a lot of over-processing going on there that's unnecessary. But without a target, we don't know.
Right. And so if you're running the production timer, which I highly recommend, I think it's the most powerful tool on the internet that not enough people are using. Also, people are not quick to ask for help. You know, like if I'm struggling, I'm not struggling. And then as soon as I start struggling, I don't put up my hand and be like, team leader, I need help. Like for some reason, we just keep struggling until we get through that thing. But if you're running the production timer, we get red, yellow, green screen. So your team, the Gemba people don't have to say a word. The screen turns yellow all on its own. It turns red all on its own. And then your team leader can come and see, hey, how you doing? You struggling? Oh, we'll be back on track in
It's
2
a
minutes.
on-dawn signal, and it's not about you feeling bad asking for help. It's about if I didn't know you needed help all day, then I got a problem, right? I need to make it easy for me to see what I need to see. If I'm in charge of the shop, I need to know you're struggling, and I don't want to go around asking you every 15 minutes, "Are you okay?" We need to put these systems in place.
Right. And we're going to talk about four measurements that are critical, and number 4 being probably the most critical. But so we're counting our pieces per day. We're running the production timer. We're counting our pieces per day. We know that's not enough, but it's a really good start. Now we're going to move on to counting our throughput dollars per labor hour. I think that this is probably one of the best measurements we've ever come up with in terms of really immediately showing people the effect of what's going on the shop floor. Whether it's I hired a new person, I can watch my throughput dollars per labor hour. By the very next day, it should change. It should go up or down, or something's going to happen because we added people. So it's going to give us our labor effectiveness rate.
Right. So if I reconfigure an area, let's say I don't have a door cell right now, and I build a door cell and I staff it appropriately, that throughput dollar per labor hour is going to tell me if I made a good decision. It's going to go up. And if it doesn't go up, we got a bigger problem. We made a bad decision. Or this is classically what we do. We get that door department flowing really well, and our throughput dollars per labor hour didn't go up because our bottleneck is still operating at the same pace it was, which is why we always go back to measuring your bottleneck. And if it didn't have an effect on your bottleneck, is that the right place to put that labor? But you can tell right away.
Yep, immediately. And that's, that number can also guide you when you make capital purchases. So I can buy the big who's a what's it machine, and literally the day after I turn it on, I look at the graph and I see, did my throughput per labor hour go up? And it should. If you bought something to help your operation, 100% that number should move.
If you get a good handle on your quality, your throughput dollar per labor hour will go up as well. If you get better, if you're more committed to standards and training people, your throughput dollar per labor hour will go up. Don't do too many changes at once. You want to change one thing at a time, but it will reflect your change.
Right.
Good or bad.
And so we should kind of like unfold what this throughput dollars per labor hour is. So a throughput dollar is your sale price less the material. That's what we're considering a throughput dollar.
Across the finish line.
Yes. You have to determine where the finish line is for your company. I highly recommend it. Once it gets to the shipping door, that's when you count it, because you don't want to hold your installers, you don't want to hold your shop accountable for your customers or your installers or whatever.
Or trucks or logistics.
Exactly. So as soon as it gets ready to ship, we count it as throughput dollars. But just by definition, that throughput dollar is your sale value minus the material. Now, if you think that that's too much work to calculate, get over it. You need to do, there's no other way to say it. You need to figure that out.
Okay, but let's talk about why.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Why do we want to take the material out of that equation?
Well, because one day you could be building a kitchen out of paint grade poplar, and the next day it could be quarter sawn walnut. Now it's the same kitchen, the same amount of work, but the dollar value will be different. So on Monday, when you built the paint grade one, you'll think, oh, we suck. But on Wednesday, when you build the walnut one, you'll be like, oh my God, or if you're just counting sales dollars, you'll think we're crushing it. But we want to measure the actual effort.
Right. Well, in reality, you might have had a really bad productivity day, but your material saved you, made you look good.
Yeah. Right. Right.
That's why we take it out. We take it out so that we remove that disparity between the material, especially if you have a big difference in materials, right? So just take it out of the equation. It's
All
got nothing to
material.
do with your effort and productivity.
Everything else stays in that number. Everything. So don't overcomplicate it. Just take your material out, and then that's your number. And then per labor hour. So at that point, we take everybody in the building and we divide the throughput dollars by how many hours got put into the entire building that day. And this is going to spit out a number.
And the question I get is, are we including salespeople? Are we including the hidden factory?
Yeah, I would say you can include, I mean, everybody should be contributing to throughput. Like if you have people in your operation that are not contributing to throughput, I got an idea for reducing your labor.
Yeah.
So yes, you can. Do you include management? That the important part here is you pick who you're including and you don't change it.
I include everybody just because I need it for the next chart we're going to talk about, the over the line chart. So I don't make it too complicated as far as, minus people for this chart and add people for that chart. I just like to take the throughput dollars divided by your labor, period. I get that there's direct and indirect labor. But here's the thing. If you start using it and then you're like, wait a second, this is too watered down for us. We're making some specific changes in the shop. Let's just see what happens when we exclude all that indirect labor and we only focus on, or shop labor. Let's focus on direct and indirect and just in the shop alone. Sure, but you'll be pulled in that direction. But just use it the basics first and refine it as you need to for your operation.
Right. And so I would say with that one, I mean, you should include everybody. I think they're all contributing at some level to throughput. So if your engineers are making improvements that are making it easier for the Gemba people, well, then it should be reflected in your throughput dollars per labor hour, right?
There's a lot of defects coming from the hidden factory in a lot of shops I'm in, so we don't want to exclude them, right?
100%.
Yeah.
We're going to take everybody into that equation. So your throughput dollars, sales minus material, divided by how many hours are on your payroll that day. This is all really easy data to collect. And don't forget, we're not filing taxes. If you don't have a computer system that you can easily click at the end of the day and it says 186 hours we paid in payroll today, just count how many people are in the shop and on average, how many hours do you work a day? And that's good enough. All we want is a line in the sand so we can watch the average over time.
Oh, well, if you have no baseline data, we can't see if we're getting better or worse. But this also puts to bed all the different opinions we have on, well, if we move this guy over here for half a day, we can get him to do some scuffing in his spare time. Oh, no, I want that guy over there on the CNC. I want him to make drawer boxes. There's going to be 3 different opinions, but once you get the data, there's no opinions. The data doesn't lie.
Yeah. Run the experiment. 1 week, put them here. 1 week, do that. 1 week, do that.
You'll
then
know.
You just look at the number. Yeah. So this, for labor effectiveness, this is my bar none absolute favorite measurement. Next measurement we're going to talk about is your minutes per piece. So we want to know how many labor minutes go into each one of those things that you're making. And this is super easy data to collect in terms of...
You've already got it.
That's right. You've counted you're looking at your timer every day, so you get how many pieces you made, and then you have the labor from calculating your throughput labor. Now you're just dividing, instead of throughput dollars, you're dividing how many pieces into that labor. And what this is going to do is it's going to level the playing field for how long it takes to make something. Because if we're doing our pieces per day, that's affected by how many people are in the shop floor. Mm-hmm. Everyone came to work today. We had a great pieces per day measurement. Half the people are missing. Our pieces per day is going to drop. So now we're going to look for another gauge to tell us, but how are we doing? Mm-hmm. And our minutes per piece will tell us that. It doesn't care how many people are in the building. It's going to say you had 100 people, you made 100 things. That's 100 minutes went into that. And tomorrow, half the people don't show up. So it's 50-50 and you got 50. So you're still, whatever the math is. I lost myself. 1 minute per piece, whether half your staff is missing or all of your staff is there. So that one is going to kind of shore up your pieces per day measurement to say, well, we only made half as many, but look at our minutes per piece did not drop, or it did.
So we still did well. We just didn't have the people in the building.
That's right. Yeah, the people did not fail us. It was our HR department who did not staff the factory properly.
I do not want to punish the shop floor for their metrics if we didn't have a full. I can't expect them to make exactly the same amount as we would if we had fully staffed with all the machines running, right? So, there's going to be there's a bit of a buffer there. I get, one guy could call in sick maybe, or maybe even two, but you're not punishing someone when they don't have a full team.
Right. So I can just speak for my factory. We report on, well, we track all of these metrics, but the two that get sent to me every day are number of pieces and minutes per piece. So I can see, if the number of pieces dropped, but then I look at the minutes per piece. I'm like, okay, we're still, X minutes per piece. HR, why is the shop not staffed properly?
Well, it drives focus to another area.
So
it drives focus to cross-training, better training if you didn't train them well in the first place, cross-training so that we have more than one person that can do that job. And are we staffed appropriately? Are we short-staffed? HR, what's going on here? It just drives focus where it should be. That's what all these metrics do. They are just simply driving your focus every day to where the problem is.
Right. And what we've come up with because of these metrics at my shop was we did a calculation of expected labor per day, actual labor per day, and then how many people, like if we need 10 people on the floor, how many do we actually have to hire? We have to have 12 people, 13 people on staff. That there's 10 there every day. And so without measuring, without having these metrics, we would just be disappointed, 3 times a week. Like,
without having metrics, you're always disappointed because no one's solving the real problems. They don't know where to focus.
All right. So we want to measure our minutes per piece. And now the other, and you touched on it a minute ago about how important it was to, and we did have a whole conversation before we pushed play about defects and measuring and tracking defects. This, like, I know at my factory, this is probably our number one problem. One problem.
You mentioned in a previous podcast, was it $500,000?
I'm trying not to think about it, but thanks for the reminder. But yeah, 2023, $500,000 in defects.
See, people think that I'm criticizing them when I say that. I'm like, that's exciting news.
Right.
Look at the opportunity. You've quantified your defects. Now you know you have a $500,000 opportunity there. You don't have to improve your cycle time at your bottleneck. You don't have to buy a machine to improve your bottleneck. You're just reducing the defects that are costing you $500,000. That's another way to increase your throughput.
And your net profit, because you've already built in all of your sloppiness into your price.
Yeah.
So if you're making 5 to 10% now and you knock out those defects, that money goes right to your bottom line.
No one's measuring quality. When I engage with people, most of them are not measuring to the level we want them to measure at, but most of them also aren't even, they know their quality is bad, but they don't know how bad.
So now I'm just sitting here and I'm like, that's an airplane and a Ferrari. If I could just
guess you don't want it bad enough.
Oh, below the belt, but I hate it when you're right. Hate it. So yeah, so we want to measure our defects. Now, everybody's going to have different defects that affect them differently at different costs. But, I learned this from Jeff Koss over at Koss Taylor. He says, just count your labor as $1 a minute because, you'll be a little high and some people a little lower, but $1 a minute because it's easy. Mm-hmm. And then categorize your defects. So, I think we have almost 20 categories for defects, and we have a Google form that we have on the shop floor, and when we have a defect, we fill it out, hit send, it updates the charts, and then we've got data on what defects should we be focused on, because one defect might be bothering you today, but it's not the biggest offender.
Well, so I always go after what are our repeat defects, because those are, even though they might not be as impactful, they're repetitive. So that's a no-brainer. Anything that's high volume repetitive, it's either making you more money or you're losing more money fast. So we want to focus on those. I want to focus on your top 3 defects,
Right.
repetitive and impactful. Even if it only happened twice in the last 6 months, but it was a $5,000 mistake, that's a no-brainer. It is going to happen again. So let's get control of that one, and let's get control of those. Morale goes up when we get control of our quality too, especially the repetitive stuff, the little stuff that happens all the time. Maybe you're like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's only costing us $10 a day. No, it's costing you more than that. It's costing you the time that it would have taken to make a good part. You just lost that. And it's the morale. So you're paying someone to overprocess. You're paying someone to ask a lot of questions. Is this okay? Is that okay? Do you want me to just repair this? All of that overprocessing. And then the morale that goes along with it.
Yeah, we had one guy at our shop, and he stopped one day. We had just like a great day. Everything just worked. I think it's only ever happened once. And he looked at me once. He goes, flow is morale. And I never forgot that. I'm like, oh my God, that's really good. Like, flow is morale. And when you have defects constantly happening, how many times I've heard like, oh, your internal supplier, they don't care. They're just doing this. They're doing that. And it's just, you bog down the whole place when, it's something that can be fixed. Every defect can be fixed.
Well, yeah, you'll always hear us say quality at the source. It's just a no-brainer. But I'm also going to tell you that every shop that I've been in, it's wild the amount of defects that I see and the cost that's associated with them. If you're not on your floor for a week watching it, you're missing out on a tremendous opportunity.
I'll never forget. This might have been right after the $500,000 realization. I called Paul. I'm sure everybody who's listening to this knows Paul Akers. And I was like, Paul, like, we got our defects. They're like out of control. And he said something that's so simple and so profound that it did make a big difference. But he said, just find that thing, find whatever you want to fix. And he goes, make it impossible to happen again.
Yeah.
Just like, no, what I loved about that, there's no excuses. There was no, well, what about this? No, we're going to make it impossible to ship something wrong.
So that could look like, ideally you have a poke-yoke. So you make it impossible, square peg, round hole. You can't make that mistake. Or you have really strong error proofing and you make it really hard for someone to make a mistake. But that's your goal, is let's see if we can make it impossible. And if you can't make it impossible, make it so hard for someone to do it, they almost have to do it on purpose.
Right. Okay. So that's our defects. You should measure them, quantify them, and be attacking the big offenders. Now, the best one, the best one. Lovingly referred to as the over-the-line chart. I first learned about this God, I'm getting old. It might almost be like 10 years.
Oh,
10?
I think it's more than that.
Is it
maybe
more than
10
that?
years.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's go with 5.
Yeah.
Let's just say 5 years ago. Anyway, 10. I learned this from, big shout out to my good friend Bo Lewis. And he showed me this over the line chart that he was running at his company. And I'll never forget, I was at the airport. I already had it hashed out in Excel, which was super clumsy. But anyway, I was just making it work. And this tool, the reason it's called an over the line chart is because just picture a normal bar graph, and we'll definitely put some graphics up here for everybody on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify or something, then get over to YouTube. We're going to put some good B-roll in here for you. So on the left side, you have dollars, and along the bottom, you have days of the month. And every day, you're posting your throughput. So all of the things that cross the finish line, throughput dollars, sales minus material, throughput dollars you're posting on that day of the month. Now, it's called an over the line chart because we're looking ahead, not behind, no rear view mirror financial statement. We're looking ahead based on historical data that says our break even point, which is your entire financial statement, less the line that says materials. That's your break even. All your labor, all your bill, everything. Your accountant will tell you that labor's, not a fixed expense, but it is. I don't care what they say. So that line is now across on the dollar section. It's above the whole chart, and your goal is to get the throughput above that line before the end of the month. My second favorite part about this is it's daily. So now we take that break even point and we divide it by how many days are in the month. And then you get a line that goes from $0 in the bottom left up to where it intersects your break even line at the end of the month. And we call that the burn rate line. So now every single day you're posting your throughput dollars, and the burn rate line is right there to tell you, did you burn more cash today than you made? Or did you make more cash today than you burned? It is like, what this does for your ability to make a decision.
I do not know how people run a business without it. And if somebody asks me, can you come and help us? That's the first thing I say I want to see. Let's get your burn rate chart. Let's get your over the line chart set up. And I want to, because if I'm following your over the line chart from afar, remotely, the first thing I do is text you and say, what happened today? And then once we get a good rapport going, you're putting a message on there, a note on there going, here's what happened today. Because my first question is, how's tomorrow going to be different? That's all I want to know. If we had a bad day today, this tells the troops we had a bad day today. So now we know what happened today. Well, it's fresh in our mind. How are we going to avoid this tomorrow? Or what's our recovery plan? Right? Maybe we can't avoid it for the next 2 days, but we have a recovery plan in place. Without it, we tried hard. It felt good. We don't know until 6 weeks later, and there's nothing I can do. So if you tell me we had a bad month last month, that's a morale killer when I thought it was okay. We all worked hard. We didn't think it was that bad. It was looking pretty good. But if you are measuring every day, every single day, we did well or we didn't do well. And it's not punitive. It's how are we going to make it different? Mm-hmm. What did we suffer from today? What problem are we going to solve? It's about driving focus again. I want my main people focusing on this problem now.
And the favorite part, I'm listening to you, and I'm like, when we're talking about the over the line chart, all I hear is today, tomorrow, recovery plan, today, tomorrow, today. And then as soon as we talk about financial statements, we say month, year, month. We can't react at all, period, with a financial statement. So anyway, beat that dead horse. Financial statements suck. Now you have this over the line chart that is going to drive your daily action.
And where to focus, right? It's telling me where to focus. And if I have the productivity timer at my bottleneck or my control point, it's also telling me, is it my control point that's the problem, or is it somewhere else? Am I starving my control point? Like, these are key measures that are telling me, pointing me in the direction of the problem. And then I just had to have the right people in the building to solve it. But as an owner, especially if you're not in the shop every day, you're blissfully unaware. But if you look at your over the line chart every day, like I do remotely, I can tell how the plant's doing. Mm-hmm. If you look at that dashboard, I've seen you look at that dashboard when we're on a plane and you're like, oh, all right, here it comes. Here comes the reasons, what's going on. Like, how your shop's doing when we're traveling through airports. Yeah. Because you have the dashboard.
And the effect collectively of having these 4 measures in place available on a dashboard to you, to your team, to assess is you've sorry, I should say, in addition to the things we've talked about, is it's going to allow you to identify what I would refer to as your high octane products. So you're looking at your dashboard, you've got your pieces per day, your throughput dollars per labor hour, your minutes per piece. Now we're looking at the over the line chart, even the defects. And 1 week we have this, whatever, you do a multifamily project, right? You build the same 42 kitchens or something, and your numbers are off the chart. And then the next week you build, 42 custom kitchens and you watch your numbers plummet. Well, right away now I can focus not just my people and their labor and their equipment. I can focus the business to what work we should be doing. Like what?
Sales and estimating.
Totally.
Estimating to go, or maybe we need to estimate more for those kind of jobs, and sales for, I don't even want to, I'm not pushing this stuff anymore. I'm pushing this. And that's what Bo used in his first example with us. He used 2 different species of doors.
That's right.
Right. And he said a sales guy determined very quickly, I want to sell the elder door. We make way more money on that door. But they didn't know that prior to this over the line chart.
Yeah. And so once you have the dashboard, I just feel like you have control over what's going on. Now, no measurement in of itself is going to do anything. You have to do something about it. But I think we all wake up every morning wanting to do the right thing, but we're going on what hope or our gut feeling of, hey, where should I spend my time today? Whereas now you and your entire team, like at my company, we pull up this dashboard every single day at our morning meeting, and we look at every single number as a group. And just yesterday, I looked at our numbers. I was like, hey guys, why isn't that number going down? It's been like 3 months. We make improvements every day. What's going on? Sparked a whole conversation. The team got lit up again, and off they went. And so without it, I don't even know how you do it.
No. You don't do, listen, if you're doing well without measuring at that level, just think of everything you're leaving on the table.
Right.
And that over the line chart, there's 2 ways that people can affect that over the line chart.
Yes.
Right. I can increase my throughput, which is, by working at your control point and making sure that it's flat out and everything's good. I can increase my quality. But the other one is reducing my expenses. And when people can see that expense line, we had the example Bo gave us as well. Once they showed that to their people, the maintenance guy said, hey, I think we could save, between $1,000 and $2,000 a month by lowering our hydro bill, by staggering the startup of all of our machines so we get charged a lower peak rate for our hydro. Immediately, as soon as that guy saw that graph, he's like, I know how to lower that line.
Yep. And the last thing that this over the line chart does an amazing job of is, if you don't have one and you want one, it creates a bonus system for you. So daily if you're over that line, and you can see by exactly how much, and then you as the ownership or management can decide how much of that profit are you going to flip back over to your team. And that's really what engages people on the shop floor. Like, it's unfortunate, but our paycheck is a given. It's almost like that. You have to be doing that. But if you give me a bonus too, now I'm really focused on that bonus number, because that's free money, and moving that line either down or moving our throughput numbers up all equates to the bonus section of that.
Well, that's
getting
when
bigger.
you're getting your team to think like an owner, right?
That's right.
In the beginning, we just start using it yourself. And then you're eventually going to roll it out to your people when you're mature enough to use this with your people. Then you'll add the bonus line, and then there's a whole other level there, like you said, with engagement and ownership.
So, for everybody listening, those are your 4. We're going to wrap this up. Those are your 4 measurements: pieces per day, throughput dollars per labor hour, minutes per piece, and throughput dollars getting posted on your over the line chart. Can't beat it. Best 4 metrics we've ever seen for measuring a factory. And it will be the first thing we set up if you call us one day, because I just won't do anything without it. It doesn't make sense. So those are your measurements. You've been listening for 45 minutes and 51 seconds. If you want to learn more, or you're like, listen, this sounds confusing, all of these measurements are available. This whole dashboard is available to you on Kaizenify.app. If you want to see how we use it at my company, you can just go to our website, Stolbeck, STOLBEK.ca. Go under Tools and Resources, and you will see a tab that says Lean Tools. Log onto there or click on there, and you'll see all of the tools that we use to run our company. So if that helps you, go for it. Check it out. Stolbeck.ca under Tools and Resources, and then you can see everything that we do, and we wouldn't do without it. I'll tell you that right now.
It's the
All our
first thing I
businesses.
ask for when I go work on site. I ask to get as much of this set up as I can before I get there. And if they want, they could just text dashboard to 226-971-2144, and I'll arrange to work with them and walk them through the process.
All right, everybody. So there you have it. You have no more excuses for not measuring your performance in your factories. And we would love to be there along the way to give you any kind of helping hand you need. All you got to do is reach out. So that wraps up another episode of On the Shop Floor with your hosts, Brad and Lynn, and sponsors, Brad and Lynn. Everybody, have a great day and get out there and fix that factory.